your meeting. I set it up from your account, remember?
That's true. That's true. Okay. Hi, everybody. So I will, what we should do is just say your name, where you're calling in from, and whether you're a facilitator or a facilitator in training. So I'm going to call out your name because you're in a different order, I'm sure, on your screen than you are on mine. So let's start with Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita. I'm in Houston, and I'm still in training.
Great. Teresa?
Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Cowan-Jones, and I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm a facilitator and a coach.
We'll be hearing a little bit more from Teresa in a little bit. Anya?
Hi, I'm Anya. I'm calling from Berlin, and I'm still in training.
And Anya, just so you know, one of the updates we'll be giving you is Anya's working on beginning to work on a translation of the manual and program into German. Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm from Houston, and I'm a facilitator.
Wonderful. Michaela.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm currently in France, but usually in Austin, and I am almost done with my facilitator training.
So close. You're getting there. Alexis, I don't know if your screen is blue on my side, so I'm not sure if you can. Alexis? Okay, so I'll tell you, Alexis is here in Atlanta, Georgia, and she's doing training with Pam Glustrom at Trinity House, and is getting, I guess, just about the third week of the facilitator training. Bobby.
Hi, I'm Bobby. I'm in Atlanta, and I'm a facilitator in training.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Monaco.
Hi, I'm Monaco, and I'm here at Life University, and I would like to be a facilitator in training.
Great. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'll go ahead and mute everyone now just so we don't have any background noise. Just so you know, there is currently about 24 certified facilitators. About half of those, fortunately and unfortunately, are currently incarcerated either in Phillips Men's Prison or Alexis can't understand why we can't hear her. Let me try to unmute you one. Can you try talking now, Alexis? Okay, so that's a technical issue, but we'll fix that for next time. Okay, so we have about 12 right now, and what we wanted to do with this call, and then there's probably another 2 dozen or more that are in training in various ways. One thing to know for the folks that are from the old school, so to speak, we used to do facilitator training where you could just kind of on your own do the requirements and sign up for the program and then just figure out a time to get your 2 facilitations in and then go from there on your own. What we have found is that most people who do that never finish. And because there's no structure, there's no accountability, which is very hard to do anything without accountability. So now the way we're doing all the trainings is in 10-week programs. And so you sign up for a program, you're with a cohort that's moving through it. And then what we have found is that when we do that, most people actually complete the program. And if not, they get very close and they're very motivated to continue to finish that out. So the hit rate is much higher, so to speak. For people who are in training who haven't been in training or were in the old model and want to get into the new model, let us know and we'll find a course for you to be able to join. And speaking of new facilitators, we have Charlie and Connolly Barker from Dallas, Fort Worth, and we'll get an update from them in a second. But we're just giving an update now, Charlie. So if you want to get in, we're going to be doing trainings, and most of those are trainings that are happening online. So that makes it a little bit more convenient for people, but we're also in different places offering facilitator trainings in person. Any questions on that before we move into a more general update? And don't forget to unmute yourself if you do. And Bobby asked a question, what if we are done except for writing a program, meaning writing the curricular engagements, which are those individual things? Then one of the things, what a number of people have done is joined the online trainings, because not only does it keep them more familiar with the material, but it enables them to have some accountability with others so that they're working through the whole program together. And that helps people. So we have a number of people, we have a currently operating online training right now that is happening, and there's a number of people in there. Anya is included in that group, I should say, that is using that as an opportunity to get their curricular engagements done. But if not, you can continue in the old way. But we're trying to clean out the database a little bit and clean out what we've got. So if people don't kind of get done relatively soon, we're going to want to have them stop and then start over and again in another way. Okay, so just some general updates. We are continuing to expand fairly rapidly. We're going to go hopefully to have a period of consolidation as well, where we figure out kind of where we are and what we're doing. But just briefly, for those who don't know, we have a very good partnership now with the Charter for Compassion. We did a training for them in San Antonio with a number of people. That's why you're seeing people from Tucson and Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston and Austin emerging. We then ran a facilitator training online that's produced about 8 facilitators and about 4 to 6 more that are in the process of finishing that up. And we also launched on the Charter Education Institute's website 2 courses that we're running right now, where we have over 100 people participating from 12 different countries in those trainings. So one on Tuesday evenings and one on Wednesday mornings. And we just finished Skill 4, so that's going well. And we've announced 2 facilitator trainings that will be coming as a result of those. So those are going well. And we expect to have somewhere between, I'd say, 15 and 30 new facilitators in those 2 trainings. So that partnership continues to go very well, and we'll continue to update a number of people on the call. And again, I'm speaking to people who are on the call and people who are going to watch this as a recording. A number of people on the call are connected to a Charter for Compassion, including Charlie, who is the chair of the board, and others that are running different compassionate cities. So that continues to go well. Our work inside prisons and carceral settings is going well, but really only here right now in Georgia. We have, as I mentioned at the top, we have several certified facilitators that are running courses in those environments. At Phillips Men's Prison, we actually have a couple of facilitators that are running their own course without any outside supervision, which is the way we ideally want it. And we gave them 20 manuals, and we got an email from the head of counseling saying, please send more, we need more than 20. There's more than 20 people who are interested in joining us. So that is very exciting. And we are also have a number of 8 certified facilitators at Lee Arundel Women's Prison, and they are getting ready to start running programs there. One other thing I'll mention is we have a grant, and this is really open to all of you as well. We received a pilot grant to do trainings with K through 12 educators, and actually early childhood through 12th grade educators, and are running 2 pilots right now in Atlanta, where we have a group of high school students at the Weber School, faculty at the Weber School, as well as early childhood development educators at the Atlanta Jewish Academy. And we are running trainings with them. If you, and by the way, getting very good results, and this donor is very interested in how we scale this idea nationally as well as internationally. So there's room in the grant if you have a K through 12 environment where you know there's a school that may be willing to bring you in. We can pay a reasonable amount to pay you to facilitate those courses and gather data that we can then share with the donor to hopefully turn this into something that will scale in a much broader way. So that's just yes, Michaela.
I have a quick question about that, if it's okay, before I forget.
Yeah.
I know that, so I'm doing this kind of through Compassion Austin and trying to see if there are any K through 12 schools that might be interested in running that. And one of the schools is a school that's also a special ed school. And I was just wondering if that's something that would still kind of fall under that. I know it's for educators, obviously, but would that be something that would still be of interest?
Yes, absolutely. The goal, this donor's primary focus is actually on children of any kind. But his issue, his belief, his strong belief is if we just put in place curricula, which is important, then we're not going to really move the needle if the teachers don't actually practice it themselves. So he wants to start with teachers to see what the translation is. And even in the anecdotal evidence that we're getting so far from the people we're working with, that is the case. They're already bringing it into the classroom in their own way. So yes, that would be great.
Okay,
Charlie.
great.
Yeah, Michael, question. In that light, I'm assuming now that you've said what you've said that we would be going in to train teachers, not the actual students themselves.
Correct.
Again.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the other thing though is that we feel strongly that this material as is can be used with high school students, and we've already piloted with some. So like, for example, at the Weber School, the plan is to have them take the training and then some of them to become facilitators. And then in the fall, they're actually going to be offering it as an elective to their students. And they also see it as a way of training some of their students, some of the older students in particular, to become facilitators as a kind of a leadership development tool. So you can be thinking of that as well. I just also want to mention that Merida joined us from Monterrey, Mexico. Merida is hey Merida, she's just finishing up her facilitator training. And if you go to our website under course materials, you will see that we currently have a copy of the manual in Spanish, which Merida did the translation for. And we're working on the details now of her translating the rest of the materials into Spanish. So we're very excited about that as well.
I have a quick question, Michael.
Yes, Teresa.
While we're on the K through 12 training,
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have any introductory materials that we could use in addressing and going into schools and also second question, do you recommend going to the principal or counseling office, or where have you gotten traction with that conversation with the school administration?
So the answer is, so to the first, there is a brochure that you can download off of the course materials section of the website that has information that you could use. Also, for those who haven't noticed it, there are on the website now under course materials, under the facilitator login, for each skill, there's a PowerPoint, there's presentation notes, and there's a training video for that skill. That's just an update for those who didn't see that yet. But going back to Teresa's point, there's also a PowerPoint presentation now called CIT Overview and presentation notes. And the idea there is that that's like a 20 to 30 minute presentation. I've done it in 15 before, that you can give somebody. So what I did for these two schools is I went in, and this was after they had already agreed to it. So I'll back up in a second on that. But once they agreed to it, I went in and did a presentation to their faculty so that people could self-select in, and used that as a presentation to do it. In these cases, I happen to have relationships with these two schools. In one case, I happen to be the president of the board of directors, so that gives me undue influence, but that was helpful. In the other case, my contact was really through the counseling department. The head counselor had been involved in some of this work and was very interested in bringing it in, and so she was instrumental in kind of convincing the principal and head of school to bring it in. So a lot of it will depend on where you have a relationship as the best place to start. And then once one school hears about it, then the other schools say, hey, we should get in on this. And the nice thing is that it's free to them. So it's basically 20 hours of professional development that is free. And then under the grant, we can offer $100 per session for a facilitator, per facilitator. So it's someone, you could make $1,000 doing it as part of that grant.
I had another question really quickly. Sorry
Yeah.
about that, because Lessa Walker from Compassion Austin was asking me whether or not there's any sort of CEU or credit that teachers could get for having taken the training, or any sort of like certificate that we could give out to them.
So that's a great question. The answer at this point is no. We can give them obviously a certificate, but it's not for CEUs.
Sure.
So not yet. And that's one of the things, I think ideally as we start to see this thing grow, is to have people who are different area experts who are working in those different areas. And in this particular case, the donor is interested in potentially funding a position, a part-time position, maybe eventually a full-time position, to work on this if we can see that there's traction there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we're beginning to do, and we invite you guys in this process to the extent that you're teaching some courses, is to, we're starting to gather some testimonials. We're starting to collect some quantitative data too. But like, for example, we're getting some testimonials from these teachers saying, wow, after skill 2, I already started implementing this in my classroom. And if you had told me a month ago that I could calm my entire class down by having them focus on their breath, I would have told you you're crazy, but now it's working and this is happening. So gathering that will also be helpful in going in and talking to different communities. Speaking of that, I'll give one last update, and that is we're working with the Charter for Compassion on getting CIT certified for continuing education credits through the California Marriage and Family Therapy Association. And that will be something where once they approve that, which we're hoping they will, then they oftentimes can get reciprocity in other states. So that's something we'll keep you aware of, but that would be a very important element to this as well. So I think any more just general questions on our updates?
Just one for clarification.
Sir.
We actually used the Taste of CIT for the group that we're now involved with, and I think it was pretty effective. Is that what you're talking about with regard to going into a school to say, hey, here's what it's all about if you are interested?
Yeah, so there's really so there's the overview, and then what I do for Taste of CIT, and Charlie, you can tell me if this is what you did, is what I recommend is doing a taste of CIT and then some of skill 1, so that they actually get some of the they actually get to participate in some of the skills and walk away with some of the skills in their belt. But just the overview can also be very helpful in recruiting.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it over in a second to Teresa to talk about one other update, one new program coming down the pike. But before I do that, I was just going to see if anyone, I think to my knowledge, the only other thing would be, I think the only person who's starting a group right now or is in the middle of that would be Charlie and Connolly. So I didn't know if you wanted to just mention what you're doing there and then open it up to anyone else to give us updates on anything you might be working on.
I'm going to ask Connolly to give you her impressions of how things are going. I think they're going really well. We'll just be with our second skill beginning this evening, so we're excited. Good group. Connolly, your comments?
Yeah, I've got to unmute myself here. Yeah, I think it went well. We're a small group, but as it ended up, they were from 2 different church communities, so they didn't really know each other. So we were able to get the introduction thing going, and everybody seems to be enjoying it. And we've had several people say that they're looking forward to whenever we have it a second time, that maybe being able to take it. This time frame just didn't work for them, so we're encouraged.
Fantastic. Anybody else want to share that there? I know Teresa, you can. I don't want to talk about the program yet, but I know you're talking about starting one up with Sacred Space. Maybe you can share to give other people some ideas of what people are doing.
Sure. I lead an interfaith and secular community here in Tucson that gathers every week for ritual and music and learning from either the world's wisdom traditions or behavioral sciences. And I think it's an emergent communal model that the Charter for Compassion is going to launch an online class for all their compassionate cities in early August. I'm thinking people who might be facilitating CIT might be also interested in facilitating sacred space as a way of a communal form for CIT graduates to gather and keep learning the skills. And so right now we'll be launching the CIT course. There's probably maybe 1,200 people locally on our mailing list and who filter in and out weekly through that community. And so we're going to be marketing the CIT course in the fall to them. And I'll let you know how it goes.
Wonderful. Anybody else want to share what they might be working on? Pamela? Pam? Michaela, why don't you start because Pam's not unmuted yet.
Okay. So yeah, I've been connected with Compassionate Austin and Lessa Walker in particular, and we're going to be kind of marketing trainings at this new story festival happening in Austin, at an offers and needs market as well, just to try to get a sense of who in Austin might be interested in helping pilot that through Compassionate Austin with us. And so as I mentioned, the Rosedale School is kind of a school for special needs kids that we're talking to, as well as some different interfaith organizations. So getting tentacles out there to try to get that started.
Fantastic.
Pam? I did a taste of CIT for my Insight Meditation group one night. Actually, it was the night before the deadline for anyone to register for the online course. And so there were many people who were very interested, and one person who went home that night and registered for the next day. So I think it's very, that introduction, the taste of CIT really is well put together and really interests a lot of people. And we have Compassion Week coming up in Houston at the end of April. And my plan is that Anita and I hopefully will offer during Compassion Week a 2-hour taste of CIT and advertise that at the end of Compassion Week, there'll be a new course starting up, a 10-week course. So that sort of seems like a good way to market it and also let a lot more people experience it. So that's the plan here.
Fantastic.
And I'd like to add, kind of building on what Michaela said, in Austin, we're actually going to have a booth of all the compassionate cities in Texas. So we're going to have a Compassionate Texas. We're working on that. So we're all coming to Austin together and have information about the charter and CIT and what our individual cities are doing in the compassion arena. So that should be good. That's the end of March, and so we're already kind of gearing up for that as well. So,
and I might also add that Corpus Christi is organically becoming a compassionate city. Already is a compassionate city, I might add. I just had a conversation with Cliff Kircha, who's kind of at the point down there. A lot of work with the homeless, a lot of work with the prison systems, and Michael, I would really like to introduce him to you all so that he can see what's happening at the women's prison in terms of the education of those folks and what that can mean. So he will also be up in Austin during this festival. So we're going to be gathering those who aren't yet compassionate cities. They are, but they aren't officially. And so we're really excited about what's going to happen at the festival in Austin at the end of March.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to get to the point where we're going to need 2 hours on the call just for everyone to update what courses they're teaching, which I think is obviously lovely. I know that some of the other things that are going on, there's a lot of things going on through Leanne Rubenstein and Compassionate Atlanta here. There's a course being offered at Shallowford Presbyterian Counseling Center that is, they've done it where they're going to do 3 days consecutively, but on consecutive Fridays, I should say, where they're going to do the whole day focused on a particular series. So that's gotten kicked off. And Alexis has said that say that these updates are very exciting, and she's very excited to be part of the CIT team. Yes, we're very excited also. And to that point, Alexis is part of, Alexis, you can correct us if I'm wrong via chat, but she works at Gateway Center, which is probably the largest facility in Atlanta that's working to end homelessness. And she's working with, so she's working with a group of people from Gateway as well as Trinity House, which is another facility, to they did a course themselves. Now they're in the facilitator training. So I'm sure in future months we'll be hearing lots of updates from Alexis and others. The last thing I'll mention before I ask Jennifer if I missed anything is that we are going to be, we're continuing to offer life on campus and to faculty and staff. There's a course going on right now for faculty and staff, as well as in the classroom through a course that we teach there on compassion and secular ethics. And as a matter of fact, what we've actually, one of our Life University people just dropped in now, Anu, who's facilitating the course at Life University. And but through this course, Compassion and Secular Ethics, which is a 4-credit psychology course, more and more people are also taking it at the student level. And out of that, we've gotten several people who are very interested in the facilitator training. One of them is actually going through it with Alexis now down at Trinity, and that's Bella. So Jennifer, what did I forget in terms of the update? We're starting to run out of time, so I want to turn it to you, turn it to Teresa, and then see if there's any other questions.
You got everything that I had on my agenda, except for to have Teresa share with us.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Teresa. One of the things that that we recognize, and the first time I met Teresa, she immediately came and approached me about this, was that once people go through the 10-week course, it's first of all, it's hard enough to keep up with the program as you're taking it. So one of the things that Teresa's really helped us with is figuring out how to create kind of a one-to-one coaching program that people can do during the course, but then how do people stay engaged with the material and continue to do these practices, which we know are lifetime practices. And so Teresa approached us with an idea which we loved, and we're going to be launching in the next month or two. And I wanted to just turn it over to Teresa to mention a little bit about it.
Thank you. I'm just excited to see everybody and be back in the CIT community. Appreciate this reunion and all the updates. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with coaching, so I'll be real brief. Just as a baseline of a place to start, coaching's a supportive partnership that can help you maximize personal and professional potential. It's a one way of thinking about it is an action-based adult learning model that fast tracks skill development because it incorporates methods of learning that are governed by the limbic brain and all the skills associated with compassion that are taught in CIT are learned by the limbic brain. So I'm just gonna, we'll leave the science of that to the website that we'll add to that. By the end, I guess mid-March, everything will be online about both coaching resources. You'll be able to opt in for individual or group coaching, both at a very heavily discounted rate that the market offers on any coaching relationship. And all that will be, there'll be coaching resources, there'll be benefits of coaching, more about my background, all that'll be online by mid-March. So in just, a few weeks. And so we invite you to check out that part of the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
And one of the things too is the idea here is to help people become more engaged in the practices and set goals for themselves and all the things that Teresa was talking about. And as this spreads, if this part of it, we're going to pilot it, and if people are attracted to this and they like this and they're doing this, then we'll need more Teresas. And so one of the things we've thought about already is, if that does become the case, how do people also not only become facilitators, but also be able to kind of manage some of these groups on an ongoing basis? Any questions for Teresa?
Yeah, this may be a premature question, Teresa, but the implication that I hear, maybe it wasn't so implied, is the programs that may be in place for us to pull off the shelf to use where we see the need there. What kind of cost are we looking at? Because I think that does play into how much it's used. I'll be honest with you.
Yes. I'm still looking at the numbers, but I'm trying to make it a no-brainer, really rock bottom price, because we we share the same values of CIT and really want to make it about accessibility. Mm-hmm. So right now, I'll tell you the numbers I'm playing with is something like $50 a month for group coaching. Mm-hmm. And that would be weekly coaching, because in learning skills, you need to touch base weekly generally. Mm-hmm. And then for individual, I'm thinking about 75 for a month. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to make it that low. I'm still tweaking and trying to figure it out, but that would be around 6 people on a group coaching. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to, right now, that number comes down to about $17 an hour that people would be paying for coaching, and usually it goes for $175.
Okay, well, that's a significant, it's significantly better.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. And as always, and we appreciate that greatly. And it's a great question, Charlie, and we're still working all that out. And as always, we're going to try to balance sustainability with accessibility. And so to the extent that this is right for somebody, but they don't have the means, we're going to try to figure it out. And each of these things, and we have a lot to figure out, but we haven't figured this out yet, but each of these things is an opportunity also for some external funding that people hopefully can help support in various ways. So we're always open to those kinds of ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, so if we know anybody that who are big supporters of coaching as a learning modality, we would want to approach them for grants.
So if we're interested in this, like, what's the next step? Like, what's the next step for somebody that might be interested in that service?
It would be, go ahead, Michael.
No, I was just going to say, so Teresa and I are working right now on the language for the web pages, and then we're going to post that on the web. We'll roll it out slowly, but then through the web, you'll be able to either join into, so let me step back. We have several courses going on right now, all of which are going to end in the March timeframe, end of March timeframe, early April. So the idea would be to launch this to that group of people and others towards the April timeframe, but announce it earlier so they could come check it out and have time to sign up for a group. And we're looking at scheduling software and all that kind of stuff that we can integrate into the website to see how that works. And then again, as it grows, we'll have international needs and all that kind of stuff. So.
And one other follow-up question I have
please.
for Teresa is, Teresa, how many people do you envision being in an ideal group coaching session for this?
We'll probably start out signing up people at 6 per group, but ideally, I would love to keep it at 4 per group. But it just depends on the amount of interest and the price point that people need, and also, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
So you'll be able to see Bobby more of that in mid-March, and I'll be online. And my contact information will be online if you want to learn more about it.
So thank you, Teresa. And we look forward, as with everything, all your feedback on this as we roll it out, what people are saying about it, how we can improve it, all that kind of stuff. We're very much into the learning by doing. And so, but that requires feedback, honest feedback, and open feedback, so which we expect. So Marco has joined us from Monterrey, Mexico as well. So welcome, Marco. He's a facilitator in training. And so I guess at the end here, what we'll do is just open it up for questions. Are there questions from facilitators or facilitators in training on what we can do to support you? Questions about the website, the program, anything? Comments?
I have a question again.
Yes, please. Good questions. A good former Middlebury student.
Yes, so I guess I was just wondering, especially talking to different types of groups who might have different reasons for wanting to run something like CIT, what like how you found differences in like communication style or language with different groups, and like how much leeway you've used in that. Because I know, for example, like if you're teaching, you know, people who are then going to be training kids, or if you're teaching an interfaith group, how has that kind of shifted the way in which you teach it, if at all, and kind of what is the leeway there for that?
So a couple things. The first thing is, and we had a great I'll share some final notes at the end about the last few days that some of you, actually Charlie was there, that we experienced. But we were working with a lot of really interesting folks that are working on bringing compassion to things like higher education and prison, or dealing with people all over the world in education and things of that nature. And so this question came up, and one of the things that we stress is the fact that CIT is a facilitated program. It's not a taught program. Like we don't call you guys teachers, right? We call you facilitators, because a lot of it is about giving over the concepts, but letting people translate it and talk about it in their own way. So for example, when I just came from the school this morning, all of their ethical mindfulness skits were about stuff going on in the classroom. And when we do that at a prison, it's always about what's going on in the prison. So we really encourage a lot of that to happen during those critical insight activities and during the mindful dialogues. All of that is kind of designed to help have people translate it into things that are meaningful to them. Having said that, if there is a section that needs to be translated or terminology that needs to be translated, then of course what we want to rely on you guys to do is to be able to work with the local community that you're working with to make that translation in such a way that it becomes meaningful to them. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, so I guess that definitely does answer the question. Thank you. So I guess the answer is that if there's that kind of change or edit that we want to make with whoever we're facilitating with, or whoever the partner is there, kind of the director level, that's a decision that would be made with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And of course, we're obviously always here for support and help. And then one of the things of trying to foster this kind of communication is to build community amongst the facilitators as well. And we haven't done a good job of it, but there are forums on the website, and we didn't even realize they're live. So some people have been using them, although not a lot. But at some point, we want to encourage that so that people can have a means of communication with each other to say, hey, I just did this with a early childhood development teachers, and this worked really well, or this was a complete face plant, and I could use some help for the next one.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions or thoughts? We got about 5 more minutes. Yes, Anya.
So I was wondering if you considered organizing something like an annual conference or something on CIT, like workshops, but also follow-ups like we do online today, and different formats, in fact.
Yeah, so that is definitely something we've kicked around. We were thinking about maybe even doing something this summer, but I don't know that that's going to happen. We are constantly in this kind of battle with ourselves of the idea of the benefit of bringing people together, but the issue of equity and everyone having the means to get there, and it not being something that only the people who can figure out how to afford it can do. And so that's something we're thinking through and want to talk to people about how we can scholarship that and do that. But yes, the answer is definitely we would love to do that, and I think there would be a huge benefit of doing that.
Well, one idea that I might offer is that there are conferences. For example, we're going to have one on September the 14th as part of the Compassion Games. Be the first time that we've done it with Compassion DFW. But I was thinking that where we know there are going to be various conferences, maybe those of us who do facilitate, who become aware of these conferences, to take materials and be able to have a 15-20 minute taste of CIT so that folks at these conferences can see that, experience it, and maybe go to an online, comprehensive online program, or where they live locally, where we have identified facilitators. Just a suggestion, because I think that way you really spread it out and you actually involve a lot of conferences and not just say one conference.
I think that's a great suggestion, and it's similar to what we did at the National Conference for Higher Education in Prison. We did something like that. We got to present a panel, and now we have several people from that on the online training. And the other thing you made me think of too, which is, again, we're in our infancy, and hopefully we continue this growth, is that as people go to other conferences, facilitators should meet up, right? So if there's a number of people, like for example, it sounds like there'll be a number of people at this Story Festival in Austin, a group of you're going to have the Compassionate Cities there anyway, but having the facilitators connect, and certain ones of these over time, we can maybe figure out how Jennifer and I can get there and do some additional meetings to kind of leverage people's the money they're already spending. So, any final burning questions, comments?
I don't have. Oh, sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
Well, just that I really like how in the facilitator section of the website, you have the populations that people are working with. This has been so helpful and inspiring to hear even more that aren't online yet.
Yeah.
So I was hoping we could be good at kind of cataloging that, and like with just so that we can go to the facilitator section anytime and see those like interests of similar populations, so that we can contact each other directly.
I think that is so right on. And a lot of that is also about the facilitators in training getting to become facilitators, and we can list them there. And I think with the encouragement of those who have already gone through it, that will definitely happen. The last thing I'll say before we sign off at 12:45 is just that we were fortunate to host the Octagon Conference on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Life University, which is an annual conference we do, which is a think tank. The last 5 years have been around this idea of compassion and integrity, and out of that conference has emerged the Center for Compassion, Integrity, and Secular Ethics, the Shalon Project, which is our prison program, CIT, all of these things, by bringing in great thinkers and big hearts in the area of the academics as well as activists, people doing work in the field. This last one was on compassionate systems, and we had folks there from MIT. Interestingly, by the way, about a year and a half ago, Peter Senge at MIT developed this notion of compassionate integrity, which is basically completely overlaps with our idea of compassionate integrity, which is wonderful. And so we had one of the people running his lab there. We have there were people there from Columbia, from Cornell, from Emory, from Life University, as well as people doing work in the field in criminal justice reform, policy change, systemic change in places like Israel, all over the place. We had about 25 people, including Charlie was there from the Charter for Compassion. And one of the things that I just want to say is that, number one, it was great because all of those people got to learn a lot more about CIT and experience some of the modules that we do with CIT, which was great because now we have even more people who are doing really important work around the world that are familiar with it. The second thing, though, is that the people who are doing work in the field, in these really tense situations, dealing with really real world issues, all came to the same conclusion and started there when they got there, which is why they were there probably, which is that before we can make systemic change, we have to have compassion. And that the model that we have in CIT of balancing compassion with discernment, with the ability to have wisdom, and blending those two things together through common humanity and recognition of interdependence is critical for making these social changes. And they all, time and time again, came back to that. And so I think it just reinforced the idea that hopefully we're on the right track in making some incremental, I don't want to convince ourselves that we're doing more than we are, but just that incremental change and how important every one of you is to that incremental change and the grassroots nature of this. Because without people out there, there's only, you know, I can impact a few people, Jennifer can impact a few people, but you guys can impact a lot more people. And that's really, really critical. So keeping this flat, keeping this out there is really important to us. So with that, I'll conclude. I didn't have my charger, and I see I only have 4% battery left. And we're at time.
I just wanted to
yes,
say
quickly, please.
Just really quickly, that's been rather quiet during the call, but just to say that we are getting on with things here. We're trying to get compassion into business. So we're actually working around the language, we're working around creating the groups, and maybe obviously training facilitators at some point. I'm hoping this will happen within the next month or so, okay? But we're still at very early grounds at the moment, okay? So we'll be in touch again about all this.
We are very confident in you and Marco and the rest. Oh, one last thing I'm gonna say, and then we gotta cut it off, is that we're working towards figuring out what it means to be a level 2 facilitator. So Pam Glustrom, who couldn't be with us today, will be our first level 2 facilitator. She's already facilitated over 5 courses herself, as well as overseen the certification of about a dozen people in working with me and Jennifer. So she's gone through that process of mentoring, and a level 2 facilitator will be able to certify level 1 facilitators. And that's going to be really important to the growth of this as well. We don't know what that economic model looks like. Pam is a volunteer at this point, which we don't expect everyone to be, but that is something to think about going forward, that we do want to have that in place so that we can continue to expand. Thank you all. I look forward to communicating with everyone, and everyone communicating with each other, and we'll see you next month. If not before, hopefully.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.